anywhere. It's up to you, New York, New York.
How we doing, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast here on Facebook Live and YouTube. I am your host, Richie, riding solo this morning. Gotta speak on last night's Thursday night thriller between the Seattle Seahawks and the Los Angeles Rams, as the Seahawks are in a position now where they can actually be the number one seed for the NFC playoffs. Very well, the road could run through the 12th man, and it certainly didn't look like it was going to play out that way until about midway through the fourth quarter. Seattle overcoming a 16-point deficit. Shed, what's up, bro? I can't believe that happened yesterday. Truly. I can't believe what we saw yesterday. All right, we're going to get into it here. Sam Darnold, fourth quarter coming through, first true signature victory for the Seattle Seahawks with him at the helm. And, you know, it's something we discussed in detail about how the Minnesota Vikings made a grave mistake letting this guy enter free agency, go over there, do his thing. And, you know, J.J. McCarthy now starting to look like the guy in Minnesota, but it's all about Sam Darnold right now. This is like a reclamation project similar to that of Baker Mayfield, who hit the floor after his Cleveland time. Puka Nacua in a losing effort, helping his fantasy owners in a big way, just a monster performance out of him. And, you know, the way this game concluded, it kind of gave me the vibes going way back to, I believe the season was 2012, where the Seattle Seahawks controversially defeated the Green Bay Packers on a pass that looked like it was picked off. And that 2-point conversion, ultimately it was decided that the ball was thrown behind the line of scrimmage. Just really crazy how it played out. And walking away from this game, I'm not quite sure how I feel. Do I really believe that Seattle's better than the Rams? I'm not sure about that. No Devontae Adams last night. The Rams were able to do something that nobody's done this year, which is really just gash the Seattle defense. But Seattle was the last team standing, and now the 49ers find themselves in a position where they could possibly jump the Rams. As they split their two previous meetings, this divisional loss hurts the Rams undeniably last night. Jed, how are you feeling about the Niners possibly jumping up in the standings? Yeah, man, Puka won off. I'm actually eliminated in all four of my fantasy leagues. I got knocked out in round one in each one of them, Nunez, so I'm glad you're still playing. But the guy who beat me, Brett Bandick, he got 40 out of Nacua last night, so that's cool. Yeah, I tend to agree. That was kind of on display, Shed, with the Titans putting up those points on the Niners, albeit in a losing effort. So the first peg falls of these divisional games. We got a lot of them. Chicago Bears going to be hosting the Green Bay Packers. Niners are in a position to jump right now. We've got Carolina hosting Tampa. This is a huge week for divisional games. And although it's a long shot, the Buffalo Bills still have an outside shot to win the AFC East if the New England Patriots should stumble in one more division game. Of course, that means that Buffalo would have to win out because New England, even in a tie scenario, if they end up with the same record, would ultimately have the better division record. So, the Jets and the Dolphins aren't exactly teams to be feared, but, it's a week-to-week league. I think if New England wraps it up this week, beats Baltimore, they're going to win that division. I think what's more scary for New England is the prospect of a third matchup with Buffalo, as I think Buffalo more than made a statement a week ago. But lots to be decided. I'm going to be honest. I still think the Rams are the best team in this division. I still think the Rams are the best team in the NFC. But it would be awfully interesting to see if Seattle actually holds on and gets home field advantage now. As you know, it's been well documented that home mystique with regard to the 12th man isn't exactly what it once was. But impressive, very impressive win for the Seattle Seahawks. I still think that Matthew Stafford is that dude. I still think that he is more than likely the most logical candidate to win the MVP this year. I'm actually in the truck doing this show, wrestling some traffic here. And it just dawned on me that I left my transponder in my lady's car. So it is what it is. Perhaps tomorrow I'll finally remember to put that back in my truck. The game has been in LA or a neutral field. The Rams would have won. Yeah, I'm with you on that. So I guess you're agreeing with me on that, Shed, that you do believe that the Rams are still the superior team. I do too. And I'm not sure if home advantage makes the total difference one way or the other, as the Rams have mirroring losses. They have the same amount of losses on the road as they do at home. So I don't necessarily think that's a life-changing or a season-altering situation for the Rams if they have to be on the road versus SoFi. Of course, I'm sure this juncture of the year, anybody wants to be home. But it's kind of shocking. And I mean, it would have been crushing for Sam Darnold, a Sam Darnold-led team, to be in the same situation 2 years in a row and come up short in a game that could decide the one seed. Of course, we know what happened last year. They lost the finale when he was the quarterback of Minnesota to Detroit. A week later, he got sacked. I think it was like 7 or 8 times against these Rams. And ultimately, the Vikings were quickly kicked out of last year's playoffs, kind of extinguishing and letting people forget about the great year they had. And that kind of brought back the eerie memories of a few years earlier with Kirk Cousins when they lost to the New York Giants. But definitely setting the stage for an interesting week moving forward in the NFL. Want to speak on a couple of other sports-related topics before I get out of here. Fresh off the NBA Cup victory, New York Knicks were short-staffed last night in Indiana playing their forever rivals as Karl Anthony Towns and Josh Hart were both sitting this one out. Jalen Brunson basically tells head coach Mike Brown, I'm winning the game, give me the ball. And he did just that. Three-point dagger in the hearts of Indiana, who are not the same Pacer team without Tyrese Halliburton, as they are on the bottom of the Eastern Conference standings. But whenever you get a Knick Pacer game, you're always going to get a decent amount of intensity and a decent amount of competitiveness. But I got to say, the biggest change that I'm enjoying with the Mike Brown-led Knicks versus what we saw with Tom Thibodeau is that he is really stretching the bench, getting more guys involved. And it looks like he did something that probably Tom Thibodeau was never going to do, and that's really put a lot of trust in the hands of Tyler Kolek, the second-year man, as he looks like he's kind of in favor of becoming the backup point guard right now, the immediate backup plan for Jalen Brunson. Another really good game. And Tyler Kolek kind of strikes me as more of your traditional type point guard who was always looking to distribute first before scoring, but he certainly has proven that he could make some big shots. And this is what the Knicks need. Of course, they were linked to Giannis about a big trade potentially with Milwaukee. And the last thing I would do if I'm the New York Knicks is make the same mistake that they did during the Carmelo Anthony era. I personally believe they would have been able to sign Carmelo Anthony that offseason. But when you have Jay-Z and the Russian billionaire kind of introducing the city of Brooklyn to the NBA, I think the Knicks were intimidated. And I think the Knicks made a very illogical trade, trading away too many assets to get Carmelo. And they never quite were able to get back that grip of that good rotation. And it cost the Knicks a lot during the Carmelo Anthony era. The Knicks also had a bad propensity for giving out max contracts to guys with pre-existing injuries. With Amare Stoudemire, you could back that up before him, another power forward, Antonio McDyess. The Knicks were always known for throwing money at guys who had too deep of injury histories. But under Leon Rose's watch, this Knicks team is doing things the right way, and I really love the way they have built this team right now. I think about the big trades they've made. Of course, Dante DiVincenzo, Julius Randle moving on to Minnesota. But now when I look at the way that they've got this bench blossoming with guys like Jordan Clarkson, guys like Tyler Kolek, you're getting contributions out of your bigs when Karl Anthony Towns gets a rest. This Knicks team looks really complete. 9-1 over their last 10 games. They're NBA Cup winners. Of course, they've decided not to hang that banner. A team with a storied history like the Los Angeles Lakers even hung it. But I understand the reasoning. There was a huge thirst in Madison Square Garden for the Knicks to finally win that first elusive NBA title since the 72-73 season. And I do believe that potentially putting up a banner in a tournament, in-season tournament, when you're lining it up next to your most recent Eastern Conference championships, 99 and 94, along with your two all-time championships, it might not be the best look in such a storied arena. So I do understand both sides of it. It seems like the players are okay with it. There is a bigger goal, which is obviously winning an NBA championship this year. And speaking of NBA championships, the defending champions, Oklahoma City Thunder, fresh off of getting their win streak busted up, they're back in the win column, putting it on the Los Angeles Clippers. And they look like undeniably the team to beat. SGA, once again, MVP caliber season. And this Thunder team is so deep. But that was my potential finals preview. I did pick the Houston Rockets. I think I might have been a little too high on them out the gates. Maybe I have a little too much faith in Kevin Durant at this juncture of his career, but I most definitely think the Knicks are in a great position to represent the East this year. And it's exciting right now. Now, the team I just mentioned, Oklahoma City Thunder, there have been rumors that the team whose history they hold, the Seattle Supersonics, may be making a return to the NBA, as they are mentioned as a potential finalist along with Vegas for NBA expansion. And that is one of the more proud franchises when you think about growing up in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s. A team that was just so very popular. You had the Glove, Gary Payton, you had the Rain Man, Sean Kemp, Detlef Schrempf, LaFonso Ellis, Dale Ellis. They had a really, really good team. Dana Barros, the list goes on. I would love to see the Supersonics come back to the NBA. It's a good sports town, bottom line, and Seattle's definitely a good sports town. You see the way that they show out for the Mariners, as well as the Seattle Seahawks. Of course, they have a new hockey team out there too. So will be very interesting to see. Want to ask you guys, the viewers, a question, switching it over to boxing for a moment. Do you guys feel that Terrence Bud Crawford is truly retired, or is this just kind of taking a long vacation until he finds something bigger in the fight game? Of course, his massive win over Canelo Alvarez certifies his legacy. So curious what you guys think. I'll say this. I think it's great for boxing that Crawford was able to get that victory. I personally feel this is a guy that belongs at the same table with some of the greatest in that division over different years, whether you're talking about going way, way back to Sugar Ray Robinson, or more recently over a couple of different generations, talking about Floyd Mayweather, or of course, Sugar Ray Leonard. I think that Terrence Bud Crawford checks all the boxes. The difference between the latter two that I mentioned, Ray Leonard as well as Floyd Mayweather, I think that Bud doesn't necessarily have that flamboyance or that mass ego where he feels that he needs to keep going on. So congrats to him if it is certifiably a retirement. I mean, I've seen guys in boxing come back similarly to how guys come back in professional wrestling, you know? So when a boxer says that they're retiring, I always take that with a grain of salt. But similar to the wrestling retirement of John Cena, I do think that Bud Crawford likely is calling it a career. So congrats to him on a great job. Yeah, Nunez, nothing left to prove. I definitely agree with you there. 100% Nunez. I'm with you on that. I don't think Bud Crawford has anything to prove, but you never know. You know, you sit down, you stay away for 6-8 months, a new contender arises, and then maybe, you know, things look a little differently. You know, I was kind of disappointed because when you think about the great Mexican warriors, just great Latino fighters in general, I was looking forward to potentially seeing Canelo Alvarez take on David Benavidez. Of course, I think Canelo was dodging him. I don't think we'll be seeing that. What else? Other stories around the NFL. Big game in D.C. this week. Philadelphia Eagles traveling to Washington, taking on the Commanders. I feel pretty good for the Eagles this week. I go back to last season when the Eagles were running all over them prior to Jalen Hurts getting concussed. Things turned when Kenny Pickett came in. Of course, they beat Kenny Pickett last week. I don't see that same thing happening here. I think the Eagles are going to play wire to wire, pretty good football game against an inferior opponent. And I expect the Philadelphia Eagles to take the necessary steps to wrap up the NFC East and become the first team to repeat in this division in over 2+ decades. Dallas definitely had some lifelines over the course of the last month, but squandered opportunities coming in full circle, especially that loss to Minnesota at home. That was really the dagger for me. But we'll see. You know, my New York Giants, I'm not going to lie, man, at this juncture of the season, and when I look at the injury report and the way that they're holding guys out, I personally think that it is just all on tank mode in East Rutherford, New Jersey, as the Giants currently are in a position to have the 1 pick. And something I've got to address. Fernando Mendoza, good quarterback at Indiana. Don't get it twisted. I could see him being in East Rutherford as the quarterback of the Jets. But Giant fans that are talking about moving on from Jackson Dart for Mendoza, and then you have to implement so many new things and have players adjust yet again. One of the dumber ideas I've heard in quite some time, and hearing Colin Cowherd co-sign it just shows me that Colin Cowherd has no business talking football. You know, I used to make fun of Max Kellerman saying how he was great in terms of being an analyst for boxing, but had no business talking football. I think Stephen A is another guy that doesn't know his ass from his elbow when talking football. And Colin Cowherd, just another one of his vintage stupid takes. And this rumor, this suggestion really deserves no legs whatsoever. Jackson Dart is the future quarterback of the New York Football Giants. Now, having said that, next head coach, whoever that may be, I hope really works diligently to get Jackson Dart to start being a little more careful with his body, as you only get one brain, and you cannot afford to be in the blue tent 5 times or more a year. Jackson's very fortunate that he only had one documented concussion in this rookie campaign. Got to learn how to slide and live to fight another down. I mean, I love his tenacity. I love that the kid works his ass off and just wants to win. But, he has to come to the conclusion and understand that he is the big asset. He is the future of the organization. And with that comes having to be a little more responsible. So let's just say hypothetically, if the Giants bring in Mike McCarthy, I've spoken to this with my guy Zappy as well as Idris Salam. McCarthy is the type of coach that did a good job of honing in both Aaron Rodgers and Dak Prescott to become better pocket passers. I do believe if given the opportunity, he will do the same with young Jackson Dart. But it definitely has to happen if he is the coach. Of course, Shula's been linked to the Giants. It's been a hot minute since the Giants went the defensive route for a head coach. You got to go all the way back to Bill Parcells, unless if anyone is counting the interim job that Steve Spagnuolo had some years back before the Pat Shurmur era started. But definitely a lot going on. And speaking of Spagnuolo, with the Chiefs missing the playoffs this year, that's definitely somebody that I would find intriguing for the New York Football Giants to consider. That would be his 3rd time as a member of the Giants, 2nd time in a head coaching role. As I mentioned, he was the interim guy super briefly. But get at me. Let me know what you guys think. Who should the New York Giants hire as their next head coach? I definitely would love to hear what all of you have to say. Who's your favorite / dark horse in the NFL? I'm going to go dark horse right now in the NFC. Got 2 teams on the brain, and I don't even know if I feel comfortable calling them a dark horse. But I'm going to say the Green Bay Packers in the NFC, Buffalo Bills in the AFC, because they're wild cards, basically, at the moment anyway. Green Bay, Chicago, so much on the line in that one. Green Bay has had the history value in the terms of their last 3 quarterbacks all getting the best of the Chicago Bears, but this is a new season. Ben Johnson definitely deserving of head coach of the year nominations. There are a few guys in the mix this year for head coach of the year, but Ben Johnson definitely on top of that list, one of the likely guys to get that award. I've already been working on my mock drafts. I am most definitely in Jaguars. That's an interesting one, Nunez. I like it and I don't like it at the same time. And I'll keep it a buck. I don't trust Trevor Lawrence. I mean, I get it. He's coming off his personal best game of his career. That was a performance for the ages. Most guys in the course of a 20-year career won't do that once. We saw Drew Bledsoe and Eli Manning have that kind of game head-to-head against each other. One touchdown shy of the NFL record is nothing to sneeze at. But I'm still not convinced that the Jaguars are that team. I think Houston, braving the storm of getting off to that bad start, will ultimately find a way to win that South Division. And, of course, the Daniel Jones injury really just crippled the Indianapolis Colts' chances of winning that division. I mean, they're not dead yet, but I just don't see Old Man Rivers going into Santa Clara and getting the dub. But crazier things have happened. Crazier things have definitely happened. Also, another thing, you look at Christian McCaffrey, kind of year he's having, definitely checks the box for comeback player of the year, definitely checks the box for offensive player of the year. But how about the trifecta? Does Christian McCaffrey deserve to be the league MVP? I know that predominantly it goes to quarterbacks, but I'm sorry, man. This dude has more fantasy points than quarterbacks this year. This guy's having a monster season. That might not get looked at in the same light as what Barkley did last year with the 2K, because Christian McCaffrey is the quintessential dual threat. I mean, shit, even a triple threat. We've seen this man throw touchdowns in the past. But I'm going to start on the wagon that I think that Christian McCaffrey deserves strong consideration for NFL MVP, because while Matthew Stafford has been pretty awesome this year, I don't think it's like a mind-blowing statistical value that we've seen other quarterbacks win this award with over the years. And, similarly to how they pick Super Bowl MVPs, I don't think it's fair to just pencil in a guy to win awards just because of positional value. And I think it's something worth considering. I think Christian McCaffrey is more than deserving of winning the NFL MVP this year. I think Jonathan Taylor lost some steam early on in the season. He was most definitely a candidate too, as not too many people had the Indianapolis Colts having the season they did, and that's in large part to the health of Jonathan Taylor and in large part to what Daniel Jones did prior to the unfortunate Achilles injury. And he was already messing around playing on a broken femur. Speaks volumes on the toughness of Daniel Jones, but a very unfortunate situation as, he got handsomely paid by the Giants, but he was looking at another long-term deal. Now I think it's the kind of situation where Jones is going to have to take another one-year deal before, something bigger comes his way, but most definitely capable of locking in another big contract for Jones, as he's on the trajectory to possibly make the kind of money that the guy he replaced made, because Eli Manning made a ton of money in the NFL and now enjoying his time on the Manning cast. Looks like Travis Kelce going to be calling it a career. It appears that way. Yeah, I think it's time. I most definitely think it's time. And when he talked about, the Chiefs as opposed to us or, our team, anything along those lines, I think it kind of between the lines says that Kelce is strongly considering hanging it up. But until next time, I am Richie. If you haven't already, please make it a point, like and subscribe to the channel, Richie X Junior Sports Podcast on YouTube. Check out the V-Mix, the Vicious Mix with my co-host, Mr. Idris Salam on live365.com. Check out the Bleed Blue Show. Shouts out Steve Azul. Check out the Casual Combo Show every other Monday and Wednesday, 8 to 10 p.m. over on Hand Radio. And check out our friends at the Sports Corner, Johnny Nast, Joe Gal, two of the best Philadelphia Eagles fans you'll ever meet. Nunez is another one. I don't usually talk so highly of Eagle fans, but those are three of the best ones, and I got to give props for that. On Facebook, if you're looking to talk some sports, definitely check out NFC Beast, one of the best pages to talk sports, knowledgeable fans. And we have a couple of transients from other divisions that reside in there as well. Have a great weekend. Have a prosperous Friday. Take care of you. Take care of yours. It's Richie, and I am out.